it's a lot of guys working on getting their payday by getting drafted into the National Football League. A lot of guys last week were working towards that end at the NFL Draft Combine in Indianapolis. And so some things definitely shifted when it comes to how these mock drafts are set as people try and experiment and get a feel for maybe what could happen in late August once that the selection event happens. Now, I know you were very fascinated with the idea of the movers and shakers. Mm-hmm. I always am annoyed by like the concept of draft stock per se, because it's not really stock. We just now we have more information. We're like, oh, we probably should have these guys in different places now that we know more information. And I don't know how much that's like, well, you didn't have a lot of value now, but now you have, like, I don't know how much that stock actually exists. But regardless, right, that is the thing that does not matter. What does matter is now we have a better idea, or at least we feel like we have a better idea of maybe where some of these guys are. And there was a large effect, I imagine, for a lot of folks based on the combine. Yeah, so some of the biggest winners that their draft stock probably jumped up are going to be Xavier Worthy from Texas. I talked to Brian Broderick about this as soon as he was leaving. I wonder what happened that made him jump a whole bunch. It definitely helps when you set the combine record for the 40 with the 4.21, fastest we've ever seen at the combine recorded. Take that, John Ross. So we saw John Ross's stock rise, and I think it's safe to say Xavier Worthy's a little bit better of a route runner than John Ross was. And Xavier Worthy, the pushback on him is his frame. He is 166 pounds. But he's still 6'1", right? 6'1". So, like, he was playing very thin. And a lot of people had mentioned, kind of watching back his film, that bigger DBs gave him trouble at the line and press coverage. And maybe at the catch point wasn't always like a jump ball 50-50 guy, but he's the speedster. So a guy that was maybe mid to late second round has slipped into could be late first round, early second round kind of guy, especially when you look at the Bills and the Chiefs at the back half of that first round and maybe want to steal a receiver. He's a name to get a look on. Another guy that has been jumping up is Brandon Fisk out of Florida State, who set the combine records all over the place for had the fastest 40 time from all the D linemen, had I believe the second best broad jump, vertical. Like, he was setting the combine on fire, and he looks like he's going to be a day two guy locked now. And then my favorite, J.J. McCarthy. So this is one that I find to be really interesting because, and of course, a decent amount of this, as a lot of these things end up being, is my personal opinion of him. I've kind of established, or I was kind of established earlier in the college football season. And so I'm trying to like find a way to make that jive. But it also feels like there's a level of confirmation bias happening in the other way for some folks where it had felt like, and again, I might be reading this wrong, but it felt like there had been a lot of people around kind of this draft industrial complex, for lack of a better word, that had been trying to find reasons to make J.J. McCarthy a big-time prospect. And so I feel like now there's opportunities and people are kind of taking that opportunity to move him up the board. But we've seen things like, you mentioned earlier the idea that J.J. McCarthy being the third quarterback taken. Yeah, so I'm looking at CBS Sports right now. They posted this as of yesterday, and they have the first pick, Caleb Williams, the second pick, Jaden Daniels, the third pick. Wait, hold on. Go ahead. Caleb Williams, number one. Correct. Fair. Jaden Daniels out of LSU. A lot of scouts and mocks are having Jaden as the second best quarterback. It's been Drake May. Even though neither of them did anything at the combine, just I guess it's more people looking to the film and just talk around the league. A lot of people are having Jaden Daniels higher on their list than they have Drake May. Now, there's still some Drake May at 2 guys. Okay. It's not like a full 100-degree flip, but I think it was pretty safe coming out. We had Drake May 2, Daniels 3, and that was the top 3. A lot of people have switched into putting Daniels into that 2 spot. Now, what team wants to draft him, and if Marvin Harrison maybe goes to one of these, that could change all of this, but a lot of people have been putting Jaden Daniels a little bit higher. As I wrote, no player did more for their draft stock during the 2023 college football season than Jaden Daniels. His play style reminds me of Lamar Jackson. I've said this months now. It would be shocking in 5 years from now if Daniel ends up as the best quarterback in this class. That's a wild comp to have, because I don't remember, was I talking about it with you? The idea of like, the idea that, hey man, Lamar Jackson made dudes that we know are fast look slow. Yep. Jaden Daniels is a blazer. JJ McCarthy going third is quite the interesting thing. And in this CBS draft, MHJ goes fourth to the Cardinals. Drake May falls to 5th, and Minnesota trades up to the Chargers and gets Drake May as their quarterback.
I mean, that'd be great for Minnesota to find a way to get, because it seems like they're in this weird place as they're trying to find where they will go quarterback wise after.
If it gets to pick 5 and Drake May is on the board, or Jay Nance, we'll just say one of the two. One of the 3 guys is out, or one of the 2 guys is up there. I think you do that if you're the Vikings. If you have the capital, I'm not fully aware of their full capital situation, but if you have the resources to do that and you don't re-sign Cousins, I think that's a way cheaper, and you kind of reset your quarterback clock. And now you have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison with the Drake May or Jaden Daniels, whoever's there. I think you might do it.
Is that Pete Prisco's draft board? Because you mentioned it's CBS Sports, and I'm looking at one from
This is Ryan Wilson.
Ryan Wilson, okay, yeah.
March 4th, 2024.
I'm looking at one that was done today, which, I mean, obviously not a huge difference, but it's from Will Brinson from CBS.
The CBS guys are fighting?
I mean, just, hey, man, there you have different people putting out honestly, and this is something we were talking about before the show, which absolutely needs to be considered when we talk about mock drafts. Mock drafts, I feel like not all of them are doing the exact same thing. Some mock drafts are coming from the perspective of, hey, man, what do they need, and what players then do you slot there? Or who are the best players available and where do they go there? And then some of them are working off of intel from teams, and they're going, all right, what does it seem like the teams like, whether or not what they probably should take? And then there's various combinations of those things that are all happening. And so
I'm looking at the John Breach one now.
Not every mock draft does the same things and is operating from the same perspectives. With that being the case, Will Brinson has wild things happening, including the Patriots trading up to 1 to get Caleb Williams, Drake May going 2nd.
Yep.
MHJ going to the Bears at 3. JJ McCarthy going as the 3rd quarterback to the Giants at 4 when they trade up. And all sorts of wild things happening. But I do want to get to talking a little bit about your Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
This Will Brinson draft that has some trades and some stuff. He has Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle from Oklahoma, going to your Dallas Cowboys at 24. That feels kind of standard, right?
Yep.
That feels like something that a lot of teams have going on. The Ringer is doing something that I don't completely understand, and tell me if you appreciate this whatsoever. The Ringer has at 24 edge rusher Chop Robinson.
Yeah, and I've seen this.
You've seen people do this.
The Penn State with him and Micah teammates. They have very similar builds. They're both break edge
incredibly
speed.
Quick. Yeah.
I just think it's great. If you had Tyron Smith on your team and you had a center coming back, yes, sure. Best player available, take them, upside, all of that. But
especially when you look at Jackson Powers Johnson on that mock draft going 25th immediately after.
I just think it's something where you have to get O-lineman. I wish it's not the sexy pick. I get it. Chop Robinson might light it up with some team. I just don't think it's the biggest need for going all in or even rebuilding when you sub DeMarcus Lawrence, you sub Micah Parsons. Like, this guy would be fighting for time. I think Chop Robinson's great. I just don't think that's where the Cowboys need to go right now. I think I've seen them. I have 4 different mocks up right now.
Yeah, what are you looking at?
So right now I have Bleacher Report, who has Amarius Mims from Georgia,
which
only played 8 games, but the 6'8" just monster on the field.
Right.
Everyone's just like this. The upside is you take the chance on him.
And you talk about like he is a tackle, but he also, if we're talking about replacing Tyron Smith, and of course this isn't necessarily the standard or what have you, but he looks kind of like what Tyron Smith is, where it's just like, yo, that's an offensive lineman, because he's built not like what you would typically think of an offensive lineman, where, kind of a little bit like they got the tire around the waist or whatever. Yeah. These are all athletes, and I don't mean to say this in any level of judgment, but he is built like he is muscular, he is cut, and he's built giant and strong in that way. And I think, if for nothing else, that imagery when it compares to what Tyron Smith is, who is that kind of guy who's just built incredibly well. He just happens to be giant and able to move really well and to move other dudes. So I thought that was all. The Mims is always interesting in my mind from that perspective.
Lance Zierlein of the NFL Network also mocks Mims going 24 to the Cowboys. And I mention that because then if you go to ESPN and another CBS one, Troy Fontenot from Washington is also mocked him. So
yeah,
out of the 4 major ones, it seems like Mims, Fontenot seem to be the highest regarded guys that they're going to get at 20.
Now, that ESPN one, I don't know if we're looking at the same one. It's a 2-round mock draft?
Correct.
And I like what they're doing here.
Read predictions in rounds 1 and 2.
Yeah, Jordan Reed has this. You mentioned Fontenot as the guy that they have. He also has, in the 2nd round,
Yeah, I want to get to the second round as well.
He has the Dallas Cowboys, and let me make sure I have this right. He has the Cowboys in the second round drafting Trey Benson, the running back from Florida State.
Yep.
And if you're talking about trying to get your running game back together, Trey Benson was a very good running back at Florida State. And so you pair him with adding that to that offensive line, you might be able to get some things together in that way. I kind of like what that thought process is for that pair.
I mean, I like it. Bleacher Report does something similar in their second round pick at number 56. They have the Cowboys taking Jonathan Brooks out of Texas, who was the most promising until he obviously had that leg injury and sidelined him halfway through the season. So we have a couple different mocks having them go running back. I think you can go. You go offensive line in the first round. The second round, I think it's up to 3 positions. I think you go running back. If you want to get one of these top end guys, the Trey Bensons, the Jonathan Brooks, I really think those only 2 guys may be worth on that. But you also go linebacker. You go with the Peyton Wilsons and the Jermaine Trotter, and maybe if Edgerrin Cooper is there, you definitely take him. I don't think he'll be there. And then you could also go defensive tackle, who I want so bad. Give me Tavondre Sweat in the second round. Give me Braylon Allen in the third, because I think Sweat might fall due to the weight concerns, where teams are just like, we don't know if we can do it. I don't know how long it's going to last. The Cowboys are, hey, I hope. They're like, hey, we know exactly how you're going to play. We know what we need you for. Help us on the run. We'll figure out the rest later. He will immediately help you on the run day one.
So I waited really long to deploy this, but I did want to deploy this. Dane Brugler, who seems like when you talk about the different mock drafts trying to do different things, Dane Brugler is one of those guys that seems to mesh all of these things pretty well, has a good record of kind of nailing these things because he is also very much including and considering intel from these teams and what they like. And he has trades. You know, some mocks are just going to go straight up. Some are going to include trades, and he includes trades. And one of the things, the reason why I mentioned that is at 24, he has the Cowboys trading back.
Okay.
Out of 24, trading back 4 spots to 28 with Buffalo, where they are able to get Guyton, the offensive tackle from Oklahoma, right?
I don't hate it.
So that's not
how far did we trade back?
4 spots. But
4
so
spots.
that's not the crazy thing. The thing that I like about this, right? And of course, hey man, we've talked about how there's probably going to be a lot of tackles. And you mentioned the idea, anywhere from like 20 to 30, it feels like you're still going to have an opportunity at getting one of those tackles. So if you're at a place where you like a lot of those guys, I'd like the idea of maybe trading back. And the trade that he has, the projected trade that he has, sees the Cowboys receive number 28 and number 99, which would be a compensatory pick in that third round.
Yeah.
For the Cowboys, obviously 24, and then their compensatory pick in the 6th round, that 213, as that 6th round, I believe so. I think I checked it earlier, but yes, that's the 6th round. And so what you're doing is you're turning one of that 6th round pick into a 3rd round pick. And this is a team that we mentioned in those middle rounds, they don't have a lot of draft picks available to them.
And that helps you get one of the linebackers, defensive tackles. Running back is probably the one that, because if you get linebacker, D tackle round 2 and 3, now Braylon Allen sitting there in the 4th round, Ray Davis, one of these guys you've really had formal wins and you like, and it's like, oh, we have a 4th round pick and we can get one of these guys instead of having to jump. Because I think we'd love to see the Cowboys stay defensive in those middle, 2nd, 3rd rounds, because you got a lot of holes in defensive tackle. Maybe you find a corner you like, maybe you find a linebacker you like, and you hope that you can use maybe one of those mid-round picks on a running back. So I don't mind it. It just depends on if you see, hey, this is our left tackle of the future, Amarius Mims or J.C. Latham or Jordan Moore, whatever, and you don't think that guy's going to be there. But if you all see them on an equal playing field, then yeah, move back 4 spots and get an extra 3rd round pick.
Because I mean, I think that would be huge. And I'm now, especially with the circumstances of this draft and knowing that you have some kind of, you need a little bit more ammo, at least I believe. I think that would be a great idea, is if you can have an opportunity to move back a few spots and add to your treasure trove of picks, that can be really helpful.